All right, welcome back. This is going to be part 40 of Dinosaurs and Man presentation. And this one here, this is going to be part 9 of a series of videos that I did on the topic, were there dinosaurs on the ark? And what I've done is I'm kind of finished up with the dinosaur topic, but I've decided to add in a few more um, uh, questions that's usually asked, topics that are usually brought up whenever I'm doing a class on this or I'm talking to somebody about this. And so I just thought it would really be good to add this in. Some of these topics you're going to see again whenever I start going through Noah's Ark and the flood. That's my biggest presentation. Though I will say the dinosaur presentation is closely. I think it's just about matched it. If not, it may be a little bit larger than my Noah's Ark and the flood presentation. But last that we were together, we were talking about the animals, how God miraculously used animals to do His will and guided animals. And so we were talking about how I was mentioning the verses where God said that the animals shall come unto thee, when God was talking to Noah. And I believe that the animals were guided by God to Noah. I don't believe Noah had to go out and corral any of these animals. Think about the feat. Think about that feat, what it would take to do such a task. And so, and you'd have to sit there and check off, okay, did I get these? Did I get these? Is there any of them that we left off? You know, God left that task off of Noah, and He brought those animals to him. And so, but it even goes beyond that. And so there's some really neat aspects about the whole flood account and the animals that went on the ark and the whole preparation for this judgment that God was going to send on the planet. And so that's what we're going to talk about. Now, I do need to make a correction. On my last video that I did, I was reading the part of 1 Kings chapter 17, verses 1 through 6. And what I said is I changed my slide. I was saying that Elijah prophesies a drought for several years. That's actually what it stated, several years. You know, me sitting back from the computer screen and looking at it, sometimes these words can all blend together and words can look like other words. And I said 7 years, and so I knew that that was too long of a time span that he had prophesied, and so it was actually 3 years. It was actually 3 years, and so I misread the slide, and instead of saying several years, I said 7 years. And so, but I actually changed it to where it's supposed to be, and it was 3 years. He prophesies a drought for 3 years. And so, but the ravens brought him meat twice a day during that timeline. And so God took care of Elijah miraculously by using the animals in the animal kingdom. And so, but any rate, let's go ahead and let's keep going. And so now the ones that you're seeing in white, we've already talked about that. Now the ones in yellow, we're still going through some of the things that God did with the animals that was absolutely miraculous. In Genesis chapter 2, 18 through 23, God brought the animals to Adam to name. Think about that. God brought the animals to Adam to name. Exodus chapter 8, 21 through 24. The flies were sent on the Egyptians only. The flies were sent on the Egyptians only. And this is when God was plaguing the Egyptians, right before the Israelites left Egypt. They were actually kicked out of Egypt by the time they were actually let go. And Joshua chapter 24, verses 1 through 15. God sent the hornet to the inhabitants, or some of the inhabitants of Canaan, when the children of Israel started taking over that land. God sent the hornet. Now, I like to see somebody try to train a hornet. And so, again, even in the insects, God used His miraculous power over His creation to do His will. And so, all right, going on. Now, all of these are some that we have not covered. And so 1 Samuel chapter 9, verses 3 through 20, the donkeys were made to get lost for Saul to get up with Samuel. The donkeys were made to get lost for Saul and Samuel. Now, just real briefly here, Saul was the first king of Israel. Israel, at one point in time, had what was called a theocracy. A theocracy, God was the one that governed them, and God spoke through his prophets, and that's how the communication was made. And so the Israelites ended up saying, "We want a king like the other nations." They were envious for the things that the other nations had, and they wanted a king like them. And so God said, "Okay, don't feel bad. I'm going to go ahead and give them a king." And so, even though that was not what God had originally wanted for his children, God gave them his second best. And so, even though God did not want that for his people, he said, "Okay, I'm going to give it to you. And if these kings will do this, I will do this for you." So even though it wasn't the best, God still had he allowed it, and said that if these kings would be a certain way or do a certain thing, I will still be with those people and with those kings. And so, but Saul was the first king. Saul was the first king, started off good, and then he slowly started, like with any human governed type of government, humans are not going to do what God can do for us. And so, but at any rate, what had happened is the donkeys, they were owned by Saul's family. And so the donkeys got lost. Saul went looking for the donkeys. And then when the donkeys actually, because him searching for the donkeys, he ended up finding Samuel, the prophet Samuel. And when he got to Samuel, Samuel said, "Hey, your donkeys have been found. Don't worry about them anymore." And then they went ahead and they had their conversation about what was to happen from there on out. Daniel chapter 6, 16 through 24. Daniel chapter 6, 16 through 24. He shut the lions' mouths. Now, these lions, it actually says a den of lions, a den of lions. Now, a lion's den it could just mean that it could be empty. It could be empty. It doesn't mean there could be nothing in it when you're saying a lion's den. But when you say a den of lions, that changes it. And so these lions, a lot of times, from what I understand, were starved. I mean, these diet lions are starved. So when they would throw people down in there, those lions would literally rip them apart. And so Daniel was thrown down in there. And so, not wanting to go through the whole story, Daniel was thrown down in there with these lions, and the Lord shut those lions' mouths until the very next day, and then he was let out. And of course, the people that was against him, them and their families were thrown in there, and the scriptures declares that their bodies were consumed before they hit the floor. And so that shows you just how hungry these animals were. And so just a real gory type of situation. But again, the Lord had his hand on his creation. And so he can control his creation, insects and the animal kingdom as a whole. Matthew chapter 17, verses 24 to 27, the piece of money in the fish's mouth. Now, as far as the interpretation of these verses here, there's a little bit, I've heard both ways. I've heard two different things. But the most popular interpretation on chapter 17, verses 24 to 27 is the tribute that is mentioned in here is probably defined as the half shekel, which every Jewish male paid yearly for the support of the temple. And then I put a little note in here. I personally believe Jesus is speaking of something else due to the way he is phrasing the question. When what has happened is they came in and the people were saying, "Hey, don't your master pay tribute?" And Peter said yes. And what happened is Jesus kind of chided him on that, and he asked him. He said, "Of whom's do the kings of the earth take custom or tribute?" And he was saying, "Of their own children, of the strangers." And so Peter says, "Of the strangers." And then Jesus was saying, "So the children are free. And basically, somehow or another, Jesus is saying that they are not obligated to pay this certain tribute that is mentioned. But Jesus saying he's not wanting to offend anybody. He sends Peter out to the fish that will have the coin. And so what's amazing is that, you know, it isn't like this coin just magically appeared in this fish's mouth. I just believe that, well, I don't know, maybe somebody just lost a coin somewhere in the water, and the Lord miraculously guided that fish to the coin, had the fish pick up the coin, and then when Peter was out fishing, that fish was right there prepared already. And when Peter got the fish, he opened up the fish's mouth, and there was the coin. And so again, God using His creation to do His will. Now, Mark 11, 1 through 7. Mark 11, 1 through 7. Jesus rides on a colt that no man had ever sat on. And so, again, we're talking about the creator of the universe and everything in it. And He can control His creation. And so, again, no man had ever sat on this colt or donkey, and Jesus was able to sit on it. He was the one that created every life form that we see today. And so, no problem whatsoever. Okay, let's stop right there. When we get back together again, we're going to revisit Numbers 22. Numbers 22, 1 through 35. Numbers 22, 1 through 35. Balaam's donkey talks with him with a human voice. We're going to talk about that. That is an amazing story, guys. It's an amazing story. And in so much that in the New Testament, in 2 Peter, it talks about how in chapter 2, verses 15 through 16, it says that donkey spoke with Balaam with a human voice. And they had interaction. They had interaction with each other. And so it's just absolutely incredible to think about. But who are we talking about? We're talking about God here. We're talking about the creator of the universe that can do anything, absolutely anything with His creation. And so that's what we're going to talk about next time. And so be looking out for that one video. We're going to go over that, and then we're going to continue on with some more questions that's brought up about the animals and the ark and Noah on the ark and stuff like that. We're going to turn over some more stones on there and some things I think you guys are going to find quite interesting. But we'll talk to you next time. I love you. Y'all take care. Bye-bye.